Okay, welcome back. In the last lesson, we set up all of the directories, the main structure, our app.js file, and we installed all of those important packages. Now we're going to start some of the auth-related content. We have two main goals in this video. We want to create the user model, and we also want to configure Passport to work with that user model. So let's begin. I'm going to go back to my app.js to start, and I'm just going to require all of those packages we just installed. So the first thing I'll do is just clean this up a bit. So we only have one var statement, and we chain them together with commas, which is totally optional. We could just say var x equals require y over and over, but I just like this syntax more, and you'll see it quite often. So we'll import Passport, set that equal to require Passport, comma, body parser is next, and the order doesn't matter here, but if you want to go in the exact order that I am, we're doing body parser, and that needs to be body dash parser. And then after that, we're going to import something that we're going to call local strategy, and that's going to be equal to require passport dash local. And then we have one more, which is passport local mongoose. And that's going to be equal to require passport dash local dash mongoose. Okay, and if we really wanted to, we could clean this up by indenting everything over here like this, making space so that everything aligns perfectly. Definitely just a personal preference. I'll do it in this case. So we end up with this nice little lined up require statements on the right. Okay, so now that we have that done, everything's required, the first thing I want to do is just try running the app. Make sure we don't get any issues where it can't find a particular package, it can't find a file, and we don't, so that means that everything works just fine. Great. The next thing I'm going to do is work on the user model. So I'm going to make a new file inside of models called user.js. There we go. And then I'm going to open that file up. And the first thing I'm going to do inside of here is require mongoose. Var mongoose equals require mongoose. And then I'm going to define my user schema. And each user has two different pieces, a username and a password. And they're both strings. So var user schema equals mongoose equals new mongoose dot schema. And we have username, colon, string, and password, colon, string as well. So that will set up the schema. And then we want to add our module.exports equals mongoose.model. And the name of the model is user, singular. And we're building it from the user schema, just like that, and we'll save. Now let's go back to our app.js and require this file and make sure there aren't any problems. So in app.js, we'll just add another require statement here. And we're going to write user. And if we really want to keep with this stylistic choice, user is going to be equal to require. And that's going to be ./models/user. And we need our comma. Let's save and make sure that we can find that file okay. Great, everything works fine. So right now we have a plain user file, and it has nothing to do with Passport or Passport local or Passport local mongoose. But that's all going to change right now. We're going to add in the Passport local mongoose to our user model, and that looks like this. First thing we need to do is import it again. So var Passport local mongoose equals require passport dash local dash mongoose. And this package makes it really easy on us. All that we have to do is go down somewhere after we define the schema and write this single line, user schema dot plugin passport local mongoose. What this will do is take our passport local mongoose package that we required. We installed it earlier in the last video, and then we just required it here. And it's going to add a bunch of methods that come with that package to our user schema. So it comes with a lot of important functionality and features that we'll need to use in order to have user authentication. And that's actually all we need to do to start. So let's run node app.js and make sure that we don't hit any errors, which we don't. Good news. And we'll leave this file alone for now. Now we'll go back to app.js and we'll start to connect some of the other packages that we installed. One of the first things that we need to do is tell Express to use Passport. And we write app.use passport.initialize. Just like that. And then we're going to have another one right below that, app.use passport.session, and save. So this code is basically setting Passport up so that it will work in our application. We need these two methods anytime, we need these two lines anytime we're going to use Passport. And we also need to add our Express session in. So up top here, I'm going to add an app.use, and we actually should require Express session, but I'll show you that we can just do it like this. Inline Express dash session, which we downloaded already. And we can do it this way. And what we need to do is run it as a function and pass in some arguments. So it looks a little wonky to you, but this is how we can do it in one swoop, where we're doing an app.use on something that we're requiring and executing with some options. And we have to pass in 3 different options in order for it to work with Passport. A secret, and this can be anything at all. Usually it's just a few English words. Pick your own sentence, your own words. I'm going to add in Rusty is the best and cutest dog in the world, just like that. And this secret will be used basically to encode and decode the sessions. So we're not going to be storing data inside the session as it normally looks, as English human readable data. It's going to be encoded, and this secret that we create here is going to be used to unencode or to decode that information in the session. But it can be anything at all. Okay, then we need to add in 2 other parameters, resave, and we'll set to be false, and save uninitialized will also be false. And those are just 2 other things that are required, and if we leave them off, we'll actually get a message that says, please add them in. So let's save, and just make sure everything works. And this is a really silly error on my part, but I'm going to keep it in here rather than editing it out because it shows an important concept, which is we're trying to use app, the variable app.use, we're doing something with app, but it's not defined until this line. So it's complaining to me, cannot call method use of undefined. So it's trying to call use on something, or the use method on the app object, and the app object doesn't exist. So all we have to do is move this down below anywhere, and we'll just do that right here. There we go. So we have our 3 app.uses, require the Express session, run the Express session with these 3 parameters, initialize Passport, and run passport.session. So now let's save again. Make sure when we run node app.js this time, we don't get an error, and we get that message I told you about where it would tell us that we need to have save uninitialized. And what happened is I spelled save uninitialized wrong. It is a long word. So I'm just going to copy this over here and replace what we have there. Now if we restart, hopefully it all goes well and we don't get any messages. Great. We have 2 more lines we need to get set up, and then we can start working on the routes. So those 2 lines look like this. Passport.serialize user, user.serialize user. And I'll explain these in just a moment. And then we want the same line, passport.deserialize user, and that should be user.deserialize user. And we need parentheses there. Okay, so these 2 methods are really important on Passport, serialize and deserialize. They're responsible for reading the session, taking the data from the session that's encoded and unencoding it, that's the deserialize, and then encoding it, serializing it, and putting it back in the session, which is what serialize user does. And rather than us having to write our own methods, serialize user and deserialize user, what we've done is inside of our user.js, by adding in passport local mongoose, we've added those methods in automatically. So we don't have to define user.serialize user on our own. We're using the one that comes with passport local mongoose and just telling passport to use what's already defined on the user. Same thing with deserialize. Now let's save and make sure that we don't have a problem there. Everything looks good. Great. We have everything set up now so that in the next video, we can go and start writing the routes and the forms and start using some of these methods. And that's where it really gets exciting. I'll see you in the next video.